This week's Click is hot stuff. Here's a man with a plan to power the planet.
We believe that sticking a needle into a huge magma chamber is not going to create an explosive effect.
Does he sound sure about that?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Also, Lara looks at the livers being kept alive in the lab.
And here's a question you never thought you wanted the answer to.
So if you put a cat on the moon and dropped it, it would still be able to right itself.
We could try, but I guess it should work.
Look, trust me, it's all to do with the space bot that's jumping for joy. Iceland is one of the most volcanic places on Earth, sitting on top of the mid-Atlantic ridge where two tectonic plates are pulling apart.
That means that the country's become known for its geothermal power as water is heated from the earth below. But now at the Krafla volcano, there's a much more extreme plan underway.
Yeah, a daring scientific project to drill deep into the rock to create the world's first underground magma observatory. Blimey, Adrian Murray's been there to find out more.
In this part of Iceland is one of the world's most active volcanic hotspots. Krafla has erupted 30 times in 1,000 years and last blew in the 1980s. And though it may sound crazy, scientists are now preparing to drill into it.
The idea is to learn more about how volcanoes behave so that we can better predict eruptions and also tap into a super hot source of energy.
Volcanoes can be spectacular, but they're also devastating. Around the world, millions of people live close to them. Here in Iceland, residents of Grindavik have had their lives upended by a string of eruptions. But researchers here hope their work will change that, helping to save lives and money, while also pioneering a form of volcano power.
We have about 40 wells spread around the geothermal field, producing a mixture of hot water and steam.
This plant supplies electricity to about 30,000 homes. Soon after it began operations 5 decades ago, Krafla began to wake up again.
We started to have volcanic eruption only 2 kilometers away from where we are standing now. This was a very strong indication about where the heat was coming from.
Using those new clues, scientists began drilling in this spot, where in 2009 they stumbled across an extraordinary discovery, a shallow pocket of magma.
We were aiming to drill to 4.5 kilometers and we're absolutely not expecting to hit magma at only 2.1 kilometer depth.
Much closer to the surface than scientists ever imagined. The extreme heat from this molten rock destroyed their equipment.
We were able to measure the power that comes out of it. This well produced about 10 times more than the average well in this location, giving us a very strong indication of the extremely powerful resource that we may be sitting on.
Now a team from KMT, the Krafla Magma Testbed Project, want to find it again.
Right here, 2 kilometers down, is a red-hot magma chamber, and scientists are preparing to drill down into it.
Starting in 2026, they'll begin work on the first ever underground magma observatory.
We are basically standing on the spot where we are going to drill. What we want to do is to basically revolutionize the way we monitor volcanoes. The plan is to place sensors in the magma, temperature and pressure sensors. This will allow us to predict with more accuracy volcanic activity. So this will change how we predict eruptions.
With the second well, they'll harness that extreme heat, developing what's called near magma geothermal.
The plan is to drill just short of the magma itself, possibly poke it a little bit with the geothermal resource, which is located just above the magma body. We believe that is around 500 to 600 degrees Celsius.
Just 2 boreholes of this kind could match the output of this entire plant.
We now today need to feed the power plant with 22 normal wells. So there is an obvious game changer.
And there's the exciting possibility of potentially limitless, cheap, clean energy.
This is a big part of how we are going to take geothermal to the next level, and also, of course, a huge part in the green energy transition.
But the drilling will be technically challenging. At the University of Iceland, lab work is underway testing materials to withstand extreme heat and pressure.
This is carbon steel, so the typical material used in the geothermal wells. These carbon steel materials lose strength quite quickly after 200 degrees Celsius, and they are also not corrosion resistant. So we have to explore new materials and more corrosion resistant alloys.
They're working with temperatures of up to 500 degrees and corrosive gases.
We have been focusing on high-grade alloys, nickel alloys, and also titanium alloys.
But there's still one question I need to ask.
From the outside, all this sounds, just a little bit risky. Is it going to be safe to do this?
We believe that sticking a needle into a huge magma chamber is not going to create an explosive effect. This happened in 2009, and they found out that they had probably done this a few times before without even knowing it. So we believe it's safe.
And the team here think this could be replicated around the world.
There are indications about shallow magma bodies in East Africa, in the US, and in Hawaii. Possibly this kind of geothermal power production can be applied in many, many other locations around the world where we have active volcanoes.
So this crazy sounding plan may actually have huge potential.
Every year in the UK, there are over 10,000 deaths due to liver disease. High-quality liver transplants are in short supply, and currently there are no effective treatments. But one company in Oxford is using AI to try and change that. There are plenty of companies out there that are doing AI drug discovery. But what's different here is once drugs are developed, they're then being tested on human cells and then on actual human livers that are being kept alive. They call this New York facility an ICU. It's where Bio tests its most promising treatments that have been developed by teams in Taiwan and Oxford.
Can you open me a biopsy kit?
These are livers that couldn't be used for transplant, so would otherwise be discarded. They would never be rerouted to research facilities in lieu of transplantation. Here they're supplied with oxygenated blood, nutrients and medications, whilst the machine performs dialysis. It's replicating the functions of a human kidney to help filter toxins from the blood that supplies the liver. Kenny was instrumental in setting up the facility.
We've got multiple different machines that you can plug the liver into. You have to integrate yourself into all the different infrastructure out in America to attain the organs, to put them onto these machines within a very short time frame. So these things often happen at night. It's quite labor intensive, and it's incredible dedication that the team put into this in order to put a liver onto a machine and have it maintained alive for 5 days. It's quite incredible.
It gives Okra the chance to test treatments in almost human-like conditions.
We can't look inside you. We can't look at your liver over time and see how it's degrading and how it's becoming diseased. So there's a lot of guesswork when we make medicines. And then when we finally have a medicine that we think could work, we spend years testing them in animal models, which we know don't really predict what happens in a human being.
Along with data from the livers, Okra is using a method called phenotyping, which combines imaging, genetic and biochemical analysis.
We're sequencing livers across the world at incredible detail, right down to the level of individual cells. And we use all of that data, put that data into computer models, and the computer models tell us which genes we need to be thinking about for the therapies we want to develop. And once we have these therapies, which we generate here, then instead of testing in animals, we test in humans. And by that I mean we start off in human cells, then we move on to human tissues, and then eventually testing in whole human livers that we keep alive on machines.
But there is obviously still a lot of challenge out there. Developing drugs is notoriously difficult and expensive. You've got past setting up that ICU, but there's a lot more to do.
For all chronic disease, not just for chronic liver disease, there are big bottlenecks in drug development. One is getting good data. The other is validating or testing out those ideas in humans sooner, using human data. So we can do all of that and then still spend $100 million on a clinical trial for it to fail in a matter of months.
To improve their chances, they're betting on RNA technology. RNA is the complex molecule that relays messages from our DNA to proteins and cells, the machinery that makes things happen.
RNA is something that we target to either increase expression, so if you increase the level of RNA, you can make more protein, and that's what the COVID vaccines do, or you can actually create a medicine that blocks that RNA, and that's what we do. We send these RNA therapies to very specific cells in the liver, they get inside and then they block certain genes that we want.
So this is where the chemistry that we've been looking at and the biology come together. It's over here, is it, that you're testing on human cells?
That's right. That's the key differentiator. We use primary human cells and check whether our RNA has knocked down the protein of interest.
They look like fax machines. What are they actually doing inside them?
It's doing a quantitative measurement of the RNA inside each of the cells. Normal drugs will target the three-dimensional structure of the protein, whereas now we're looking at the one-dimensional genetic code of the messenger RNA, so we can be much more precise, much faster.
Traditionally, the preclinical phase of drug development can take 6 to 10 years. Okra Bio, though, is hoping to reduce it to under 60 days. Whilst the company continues to search for that elusive molecule that will block the onset of liver disease, it recently signed a data sharing deal with the drugs giant GSK. The aim? To better understand how the liver works. The partnership may eventually lead to the development of new effective treatments for liver disease, which for anyone suffering from it can't come soon enough.